My name's Louis and I'm a university recruiter for Teach First, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about written applications in this virtual world in which we are currently operating. I work specifically with students at the University of Liverpool to support them with applying to join our various programs, including our flagship graduate training program. So if anyone does have any questions about applying from Liverpool specifically, do feel free to give me a shout at any point. The chat box will remain open throughout. For anyone that's not familiar with Teach First, one of the reasons that we exist is that inequality in education is one of the biggest challenges facing the UK today. And it's something that we're trying to solve, essentially looking to unlock the potential in all children, not just some, regardless of their backgrounds. And our training program is at the very heart of this. We develop the inspiring teachers and leaders who will help to make it happen so that together we can build a fair education for everyone. We've been ranked in the top 10 of the Times Top 100 Graduate Employees list for the past 8 years. This year we came in at number 8. And the reason for that is that our program is an opportunity to develop not only great teaching skills, but also the transferable leadership skills, such as communication, resilience, confidence, that are highly prized by all employers. We are one of the biggest graduate recruiters as well, so we have a real insight into what it takes to put a strong application together. So we'll be trying to share some of those tips with you throughout today, which I will specifically be focusing on the online application, the written application side of things for our graduate training program. The process for applying to Teach First, though, is very similar to applying to many other graduate programs, in that you'll complete your online application form, you'll attend the development center or an assessment center before being made an offer. So even if you aren't specifically interested in joining Teach First, we'll hopefully be able to offer you some hints and tips for wherever it is that you're planning to apply for. At Teach First, we're looking for people with the attributes to become great teachers. Obviously, we're recruiting for a teacher training program, and our selection process is structured to find out if you've got what it takes, in the same way that a recruitment process for a consultancy firm or a law firm would be structured in the same way too. We're searching for potential at Teach First, though. We're not searching for the finished product. So you don't need to come to us with 5 years experience of being a teacher already. That's not really the point of a graduate program. But whether you get a place in our training program or not, your development is incredibly important to us. And that's why we've created a process that builds your skills and experience throughout. If you're successful in applying to us, you'll hear from us within 3 weeks, at which point we'll let you know what subject we'd like you to teach and which region we'd like you to teach in. And there'll be also some details around some offer tasks to complete as well. But as mentioned, we'll be focusing on the first part of this journey, which is the online application. At Teach First, our online application looks something like this. So it starts with you being asked about your degree information, your academic qualifications, as well as information about yourself, any preferences that you might have in terms of where and what you want to teach. And when you enter your academic information with us, it helps us to determine what subjects you're eligible for. So a pretty straightforward part of the process. This is followed by a situational judgment test. This isn't timed, but it does have to be completed in one sitting. And the purpose of the situational judgment test is to give us a sense of who you are and what your mindset is like. It's essentially a multiple choice quiz that you're given. So you're presented with 25 questions, 25 different scenarios that you might encounter in an education-based scenario or education-based setting. And you're given 4 options for each one, in which you can choose what you think is the most appropriate and least appropriate answer. Just to give you an example, this is one of the questions that you might be faced with when applying to our training program. And it's essentially a chance not only for us to see whether you might have the right kind of mindset to be a teacher, but it also gives you a chance to see what it is that you'll be doing, in real terms on a day-to-day basis in the job. So it's a good indication for you as well to determine whether or not this role really is for you. As you can probably tell from some of the answers, there's not always generally a straight up single right or wrong answer. It's more of a chance to see how you would approach these different scenarios. And as I've mentioned, our process is very similar to that of other organizations. So you might see a situational judgment test being delivered elsewhere as well. The final part is the competency-based questions. Now, competencies for us are tremendously important. Competencies essentially refer to an ability to do something successfully or efficiently. At Teach First, we assess for 8 competencies, and these are the 8 raw ingredients that we feel makes a fantastic teacher. So during the application process, you'll be presented with 3 or 4 questions, which are competency questions. Now, they're asking for you to demonstrate times that you've demonstrated or that you've shown or developed a certain skill or a certain ability. So at Teach First, these are the competencies that we look for. As I mentioned, these are the raw ingredients that we think makes a great teacher. They show that someone has the potential to inspire in the classroom. So throughout our entire application process, both in the written online application as well as the development center, which is also currently being delivered virtually, we'll be looking for you to demonstrate these different competencies, these different qualities. And as I've said, our process is very similar to a lot of other organizations. Any other employer is likely to have a set of key skills, key qualities, key competencies, key values that they're looking for throughout their process. So before you apply to any organization, make sure you have an idea of what it is that they're looking for through their processes. And if you have a think about your favorite teachers at school, the ones that really inspired you to take your subject further, there's a really good chance that they demonstrated some, if not all, of these qualities. And that's how we determine who's right for our program. And as I've mentioned, other employers will be looking for qualities that will make someone, that will show that someone has the potential to do their job well, whether it is a consultant or a lawyer or an engineer or whatever it might be. So before applying, make sure you get your head around what those competencies are that the employer is looking for. And just to give you an example of what a competency question might look like, we ask things like, give us an example of a time you've demonstrated leadership. Give us an example of a time you've solved a problem. Give us an example of a time you've planned an event. Tell us about an occasion in which you've had to evaluate your own performance, that kind of thing. So it's a chance for you to really talk about scenarios that you've already encountered in your life that you can demonstrate that you've demonstrated these skills in. And it's important to remember with these competency questions that you don't necessarily have to talk to us about times that you've demonstrated those qualities in a professional capacity. I know a lot of students are really worried that they feel like they don't have the experience yet to be able to answer these questions efficiently. But the examples that you give us can be from any environment, whether it is professional or whether it's academic, whether it's an example from a time that you've led on a project at university or a society that you've been a part of. It can even be from your hobbies, if you're a member or a captain of a sports team, for example, or even from your personal life, from volunteering. Anything can really be a great place to be able to demonstrate a certain competency. What we also encourage people to do when answering these competency questions is to use the CAR method. You might have known it as the STAR method, but it's essentially the most straightforward way for you to be able to share your answer with us. So provide us with the context for the situation. So what was the environment? So if we were talking about society, for example, it could be something as simple as I was the marketing officer for the Chess Society, and we were putting on an event to promote our society. That could be as straightforward as that. And then the A focuses on the actions. So what did you do? What was your contribution to that event? So in what way did you personally promote those activities or promote that organization? And remember, you need to be focusing on what you personally did. Like we're not interested in what you did as a group. If you're part of a team, we want to know what your personal contribution was. So that should be the bulk of the answer. And that can be followed by the result. So what was the outcome of that situation? What was the outcome of your contribution? Did you double your membership? Did you get more sponsorship? Did you manage to put on a fantastic event within which loads of people engaged? What actually happened? What was the quantifiable result of your contribution? And again, your personal contribution. Even if you were part of a team, you can talk about how you motivated the team or got the rest of the team on board or delegated stuff to the team. But we want to hear about what your personal contribution was in this situation. And it's also important to be mindful of spelling and grammar. It might seem a little harsh, but we actually discard applications that have more than 5 spelling and grammar mistakes. And a lot of other organizations will do the same. If there are, an abundance of mistakes, it might demonstrate a kind of a lack of attention to detail, which is obviously something that's quite important when it comes to applying to graduate roles. So please do be mindful of your spelling and grammar when you're completing these answers as well. And this structure as well, this CAR method, you can use this not only for the written applications, but also for answering questions at interview as well. Part of our application process at the development center, the virtual development center, does include an interview. And the questions that you'll be asked at the interview are also competency questions, and you'll be interviewed by people who haven't seen your application form as well. So you're more than welcome to not only use the same structure that you use in the written application, but you can even use the same answers if you felt that they were strong enough. And there's a good chance that if you got to the interview, that your written application was strong enough. So feel free to do that. So a couple of tips as well, just for the online application form in general. Do your homework. As I mentioned, all organisations are going to be looking for specific qualities in their applicants. So make sure that you know what those qualities are, and make sure that you're demonstrating them throughout the process. At Teach First, we're looking for you to demonstrate strong enthusiasm and commitment, as well as an understanding of what our vision is and the journey that you're going to be taking to become an effective Teach First teacher. So have a look at our website, search the web, read articles, make sure you fully understand what it is that we do and why it's important, and also what it is that you're going to be doing as well. And for us, the online application is your opportunity to demonstrate some of the competencies which we think are essential for success on the program too. So make sure that when you're answering the questions, take time to consider your example for each question, reflect on your answers, read over them. The first example that you give won't necessarily be the first example that comes to mind rather, won't necessarily be the best. So feel free, as I mentioned, to draw on examples from all different scenarios in your life. And we're more interested in the skills and behaviors that you've demonstrated than the opportunities that you've had as well. As I've mentioned, the examples that you give don't need to be world-changing. They don't need to be amazing examples of times that you've done phenomenal things. Like something as basic as volunteering, or as, you know, supporting a family member, or being a part of a team, a sports team, can still be incredible examples of times that you've demonstrated certain competencies. So please do bear that in mind. And you'd think it would go without saying, but try not to lie or exaggerate the truth on your application form. More often than not, people will be caught out with it, and I think it's important to recognize that if you feel that you do need to lie or embellish or exaggerate the truth a little bit, I mean, everyone's done it at some point, but there's a good chance that if you're finding that you're needing to do that quite regularly with your applications, it might be that that job isn't necessarily for you. As I've mentioned, you're more than likely to already have amazing examples of times that you've demonstrated the skills that we're looking for, so please just be comfortable in using those. Check for spelling and grammar as well. We've already covered that, and ensure that your answers are complete. If you're copying and pasting your answers from a Word document onto the application form, that's absolutely fine. But just make sure that you've copied them into the right section, and make sure that they've copied across properly. And remember that you're only allowed to complete one application form per recruitment window, which is about every 4 months. So be sure to get it right the first time. Particularly at this stage in the year, when obviously we've got less than 4 months even before we'll be closing for applications. So it's important to get it right. And with Teach First in particular, I think these last 2 points are only really relevant to us rather than other recruitment processes, but feel free to take the support that we offer. We will offer pre-application form calls with our recruitment officers. You'll get support from people like myself as well throughout the entire process. So please don't rush into it. Take your time. There is a lot of time available still. I think I skipped one as well. The word counts are also important. They're an indicator of the level of detail needed. So with our answers, I think you have about 250 words per answer that you can give, which gives you an idea of how much detail we want you to go into. So just some things to bear in mind. I hope that all makes sense, but please do pop questions into the chat box if anything does come up. I can't tell whether the chat box has been... Oh no, it's fine for now. Okay, so what I'd like you guys to do, folks, is just to take a moment to have a think about one of the competencies that we look for in our application process, and choose the one that you don't feel confident with. Spend 3 minutes, we haven't got time. Spend 3 minutes coming up with an example of a time that you've demonstrated that competency. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 minutes to come up with something. You don't necessarily need to share it with us if you don't want. You don't even need to write anything down. I just want you to have a think about a time that you've demonstrated these competencies, because at some point you are going to be asked to do this for real, and this is a safe space now. You've got a chance to just have a real think about it. Are there any of these competencies that you think you excel with? Are there any of these competencies that you think, I really can't think of a time I've demonstrated those qualities? In which case, now is the time that you can actually go away and come up with an idea of how you can go about demonstrating those competencies. So I'll give you a couple of minutes just to have a think about times that you have demonstrated these competencies, and if you can, try and structure your answer in using the CAR technique that we discussed. I'll pop myself on mute for a couple of minutes while you have a think about that, and if anyone does want to share, they're more than welcome to either come off the microphone or pop their answers into the chat box. As I've mentioned, it is a safe space here, and I'm more than happy to welcome any input that anyone wants to offer. This session is here to support you with your development and your progress in terms of applying. So if you are able to contribute, that'll be fab. We'll hopefully get a bit more out of it. If anyone does have an example though that they don't want to share but they would like some feedback on, please do feel free to connect with me at the end, and I'll happily offer some reflections on your answer. But I'll give you a couple of minutes to just have a think about these competencies and whether there are any that you don't feel too confident with. And just while we're doing that, I'll just give you another moment to reflect on these, but it would be great to hear, you don't need to share anything beyond this, but it would be great to get some contributions for which of these competencies you feel everyone is basically feels most confident with, and which ones everyone feels least confident with. So myself, for example, I think that my planning and organizing is probably my least confident of the competencies, and I think that self-evaluation, potentially effective communication, effective interaction, probably my most the competencies I feel most confident with. But it'd be just nice to get an idea of what the group thinks as well for themselves. So if anyone feels like sharing, please do pop them into the chat box as well. And I noticed we've just had a question from Prewan. Have I pronounced your name right there, Prewan? Asking about whether it's possible for an international student to join this training. Unfortunately, we don't sponsor visas for international students. It depends. I mean, if you're a student from within the EU, then you'd be eligible to apply, absolutely. But we unfortunately, as a charity, we just don't have the resources to be able to sponsor international students, I'm afraid. We do. We are part of an umbrella organisation though, called Teach for All, who operate worldwide, and it might be that there are opportunities in countries in which in which you wouldn't need a working visa for, but unfortunately we wouldn't be able to join our training program at this stage. If you're not a final year student, no problem. We do have a number of undergraduate insights programs which you can apply to, even if you are an international student. So it's a good chance to develop your teaching skills a little bit further. Regardless, I've got a couple of slides towards the end which I'll happily show you about. I'll happily share with you, but no, the short answer is no, I'm afraid. And Anna has mentioned that problem solving is your least confident, and then leadership and effective interaction most confident. That's fab to hear, Anna, that you're so confident with your leadership. I think that is a skill that we quite often see lacking in a lot of undergrads. They just don't necessarily have the confidence with that. So it's awesome to see that you do feel confident with that. You don't need to share now, but it'd be interesting to know whether you do have some examples of times that you've demonstrated leadership and effective interaction. And I'd agree that problem solving is often a tricky one. You can never be too sure what you're going to face when you're solving problems, and there's obviously such a multitude of different problems to solve. It's hard to know whether you have the confidence to do so. We actually run a problem solving workshop as well, so if there is an appetite for that, I'd happily arrange something. But no, thanks for sharing. So what I'd like us to do now is to have a look at, you might have had a chance to reflect on some answers yourselves. What I want to do now is to have a look at this answer. It's an example answer that we've been given previously, and it would be great. We can either use the annotate function at the top here. I'm not sure how to make sure everyone has access to it. Can you see the annotate function, Grace?
Ooh. Don't know if I can actually now.
Okay, never mind. We'll do it without the annotate function, then that's fine. But essentially, we'll use the chat box, or feel free to come off microphones. But have a think about what's wrong with this answer. Is there anything in particular that you do or you don't like about it? Is there anything that we could do to improve this answer? What do we think about this answer? Actually, it looks like this is the issue that Anna mentioned having some a lack of confidence with, which was problem solving. So it sounds like this particular answer is about the competency problem solving. But what do we think about this? What do we think about this answer? Anyone got any thoughts? Yeah, Anna suggested that it might be a little too short. I think I would agree with you there. If this is an answer for one of our questions, as we've mentioned, that you've got 250 words to use up, so obviously a fair bit more detailed might be expected, and it is quite a quite a concise answer, isn't it? It's quite short, it's quite general. It's not really gone into much detail, which often makes it quite difficult for us to know whether they really have demonstrated that competency that we're looking for. Any other thoughts at all?
Can I chip in, Louis?
Please do, Grace. Yeah.
I just noticed you mentioned earlier in the session that it was better to focus on what you yourself did within that scenario. So I've noticed on that answer, it's a lot of we.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. There is a lot of talking about we here, and I think this is something that's it happens quite naturally. I don't know what it is about us. I think we're just a little too humble as a society when it comes to applying for jobs. But we often want to take the praise away from ourselves and kind of put it onto other people. And you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, when you're applying for a job, you're there to showcase yourself and to showcase the best version of yourself, and it is yourself that we're talking about. Like when you're applying for a job, it's you that's applying for the job. It's not part of the group that this person is in. Like we want to know what that one individual did to contribute to the situation. So no, it's a really strong observation. We've and as we've highlighted here, yeah, we comes up a lot when really it should quite possibly be I. So the orange points here, they highlight the spelling and grammar mistakes, and it looks like we've got 4 of them. Which means, I mean, they're still just about within the requisite for getting through the process. But in terms of, as Anna's mentioned, it's quite a short answer, and as Grace has mentioned, we're talking about we a lot, so it's hard to know what that one individual actually did to contribute to the situation. But yeah, they worked hardly on my dissertation, overcoming a lot, but hardly suggests that they didn't do any work on it at all, which I guess is not the impression that they want to be giving off. So it is so important to be looking through these through your spelling and grammar, and obviously person is spelt wrong as well. And at the bottom, we've mentioned results. Like there isn't actually a result of what. Even though we've talked about we rather than I, they still might have been able to save it by talking about what the actual result of was having this team meeting, but they haven't even done that really. It's just been left a bit up in the air, so we don't know whether this person's contributions made a positive difference or not. It's a bit vague really. So yeah, there's a few areas for improvement here. But I hope that's given you an idea of the sort of common mistakes that we do see in the application process, in the written application process at least, and something to think about. And here we've got another example answer. This was regarding the question around giving us an example of a time that you've demonstrated leadership. What do we think about this answer? Is it a strong answer? Have they used the CAR technique? How's the spelling and grammar? Have they talked about themselves rather than them as part of a team? Does it answer the question? Does it demonstrate leadership? What do we think? And is there anything particularly notable about this answer? Anything that we do like in particular? Anything we don't like? You know, it might not be a perfect answer necessarily. What do we think about this one? I'll give you a moment or two to have a read through and reflect on this one too. So does anyone have any thoughts on what they think about this answer? I think from my own perspective, I do think it's a very strong answer. As far as I can remember, this person was was successful with this particular answer at the very least. They've demonstrated that they've taken responsibility, they've taken the initiative, they've made decisions, they've brought a team together, they've shown an ability to influence, an ability to guide and persuade, even without necessarily being in a leadership position. So this, I mean, obviously this is an example of someone that volunteers at their local animal shelter. But they've still given us a fantastic example of a time that they've demonstrated leadership, which kind of goes back to what we were saying a little bit earlier, that the examples that you give don't necessarily have to be from, you know, a professional capacity. They can be from things as simple as a volunteering role. And it's worth just as much as an example that someone might give as being, you know, a CEO, for example. Like it's not a sliding scale of successes. As long as you can demonstrate your leadership qualities that we're looking for, then you will go far, and that's all we're looking for. You might worry that you've never had, you know, a job with leader or team leader or manager in your title in order to show leadership, and it just simply isn't the case. Another small plug, we do also have a session on leadership, which again I'd be happy to arrange at some point if anyone's interested. But yeah, all in all, I think it's a fantastic answer. As far as I could tell, there is no spelling and grammar issues. They've used the CAR technique, which is fantastic. You know, they've given us the context, having worked at an animal shelter. They've talked about what actions they took, and then they've even given us the result as well, that generating 3 new volunteers that they themselves trained. It's you know, it's a very, very strong answer. And I can imagine that if someone gave this kind of answer in an interview or on the written application, then they would go very far. And I'm assuming from the quiet chat box that we've got no issues with this answer, which is fab. But if anyone does have any questions or any comments, then please do feel free to share. So just some top tips really. I can't reiterate this enough. Never underestimate the experiences that you do have. As we've mentioned, that was a fantastic answer that we saw just there, with someone that had done something as straightforward as volunteering at an animal shelter. And keep a record of all the experiences that you might develop as well, because they are incredibly useful to draw upon. I mean, obviously your CV is a great place to start with that, or equally LinkedIn as a place to record all of your experiences, your skills, your volunteering opportunities. You can even list on there like the projects that you've worked on at university, any publications that you've contributed towards, that kind of thing. And it's great to have, because it means that when it does come to applying to a job, you can simply match up the skills and the experiences that you've already got with the competencies that organization is looking for, and it can help you determine whether or not you'll be suitable for the role. Analyze gaps in your experience as well, and research how to fill these. So again, as we've mentioned, if you were to look through your career history or your volunteering history to see what skills and experiences you have got, and compare that with the job that you're applying for, you'll be able to see whether there are any gaps there, and whether there is anything that you can be doing to fill those gaps, whether it is additional volunteering work, whether it's joining a society, getting involved in local community groups, things like that. Because as mentioned, those sorts of things, even though it's not necessarily in a professional capacity, it's still giving you the skills and experiences that employers want to see. So developing those skills and experiences where you can is so incredibly important. Make use of all the resources you have available to you as well. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, you've got an incredible career service at Liverpool. Like, I work with a couple of universities across the Northwest, and I hands down can tell you that the one that you have at Liverpool is so well run, and they have such incredible resources. It's well worth speaking to them to see what support they can offer you as well. So please do that. Always use the CAR method as well, and your strongest examples. If the question doesn't allow for the CAR method, then obviously don't. But I think for the most part, a lot of graduate recruiters will structure their questions in this kind of way. So be sure to try and fit your examples and your answers into that kind of method. It makes it so much easier for you to read it. It makes it so much easier for the assessors to read it as well. It keeps it quite concise. It makes sure that you get the key points out there, and it means that you can, as we've mentioned, focus on your contributions as well, which is the most important thing. And then if you're successful, obviously, with your written application, it's a good step towards fully preparing for the interview. If you've done the written application, you're already one step closer to getting that job. And I think the preparation that you do for the written application will serve you well for the interview, because the interview, more often than not, is just it's just building on the written application. Like at Teach First, our entire process is competency based. So we're looking for competencies throughout the written application, but we're also looking for competencies at the face-to-face development center or the virtual development center. So instead of asking you to write about those competencies, we're just asking you to demonstrate them. So we run the interview where you can talk about the competencies. We then there's then a group task where you'll be working within a team to try and come to some sort of agreement or solution on something. And again, we're looking for the competencies throughout that part. And then finally, there is a 4-minute teaching episode, which is 4 minutes for you to deliver a short lesson, where again, we'll be looking for the competencies that you'd expect to see in a great teacher. So I would imagine that the same is true for most graduate recruiters, that whatever you've done for the written application will serve you well for the interview or the assessment center as well. And yeah, this final tip, you'll always be able to find the competencies that an employer is looking for, either in the job description or on the website. So be sure to prepare a bank of answers for these. So if you were to be applying to Teach First, for example, have a look at our A competencies and see if you can demonstrate or come up with a time that you've demonstrated each of those, as we sort of talked about doing a little bit earlier. And that's more or less it for my for the kind of the written side of things. We do also have a development center masterclass, which is for the next stage of the process, which I think we're running next week, actually. At this stage, though, does anyone have any questions about our written application form? We've also got a couple of slides just to tell you about opportunities for you to get involved with Teach First, which will also be an opportunity for you to develop your competency skills a little bit further, which I'll come on to in a moment. But does anyone at this stage have any questions? I'll keep an eye on the chat box, and if anything does come up, I'll be sure to have a look. But just to mention that if there is anyone here who is graduating either next year or later, we do offer a student taster online. As I mentioned to Prewan a little earlier, this is an opportunity for everyone to get involved with, whether you're an international student, a UK student, EU student. And it's a 2-day program to give you a chance to experience teaching a little bit more. It's an option. There'll be an option to take part in debates and problem solving current issues in education, which I think for Anna, if you're looking to develop your problem solving skills a little bit further, this could be the one for you. There'll also be opportunities to reflect on your own skill sets and gain a bit more of an understanding of what educational inequalities exist, as well as finding out what makes a great lesson. You'll have a chance to plan and deliver your own mini lesson as well, just to see if teaching is for you. So please be sure to check that out. We also offer our STEM online experience. So this is for anyone who's in their penultimate year of university. So either the second year of a 3-year course or the third year of a 4-year course. If you have either a background in a STEM subject, so an A-level or an A-level equivalent in a STEM subject, or you're studying a STEM degree, this is a week-long experience where you'll take part in skills sessions, public speaking opportunities. You'll also have a chance to visit one of our partner schools and spend a day observing a teacher in action. You'll also have the chance to deliver your own mini STEM lesson as well to actual pupils from the schools that we work in. So another fantastic opportunity to develop your skills a little bit further. And then there's also an optional assessment center as well for you to try out our training program development center. So you'll actually be able to put those skills into practice at our virtual development center. And then finally, for any final year students, we do have, of course, our flagship graduate training program, which is a 2-year paid route into teaching. We'll be working in schools in communities that face the biggest challenges, where you can make an immediate impact from day one. So if anyone is interested in getting into teaching, we do still have places available on this year's program. We also temporarily have reopened our primary applications. I know a lot of people are interested in teaching primary at Liverpool. Excuse me, sorry. Earlier in the year we closed this, but it is now open again. Sorry. But yeah, applications are currently open for our training program as well, where you'll again be able to, on the written application, put some of the things we've learned today into practice. If anyone has any questions about any of those, do give me a shout. Finally, we've got a couple of webinars coming up over the next couple of weeks. One's tonight, in fact, and it's all about STEM, why STEM matters. And then next week, a session on male representation in the classroom. So if anyone's interested in coming to either of those, please do feel free to sign up with this QR code. And I think finally, I've got a short video here just to show you one of our promotional videos from Teach First, which I will hopefully play through. Let me know if you can't hear it, Grace, because I'm not sure if the sound will work through Zoom.
Okay.
Maybe the video won't work at all. We'll see. Can you hear that?
No.
No worries. We will skip through the video then. It's a fantastic video, and I'm happy to share the link out with folks afterwards. But that is more or less it from me. I don't think any questions have come through. If anyone does want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so there. Or if anyone did write down their answers for the competency questions a little earlier and they want to get some feedback on them, then please do feel free to drop me an email or send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to offer some feedback wherever I can. But otherwise, that's more or less it. I believe I'll be handing back over to yourself, Grace.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for that, Louis. That's been really interesting, and obviously the application form is the first part generally of any recruitment process, so it's definitely worth investing the time in and coming to sessions like this and finding out how you can best put the kind of best application forward. So thank you for that. I just wanted to give you a little bit more information about some upcoming sessions on our part as well. So as I mentioned at the start, this is a series of workshops called CareerConnect on Demand. So there are some other sessions from other employers if you're interested. So you can either go into Handshake and filter the events using the label CareerConnect Masterclass 2021, or there's a QR code there that you can scan. We've also recently launched a new student zone, which we're hosting on the Employer Connections side of the careers website. So on there, there's just a lot of information about current opportunities, showcasing employers that are still recruiting, talking about placements, internships, graduate opportunities, and that kind of thing. So loads of really good information on there. So again, feel free to navigate to that directly, or you can scan the QR code on the screen now. And we also have something called Virtual Connect. So again, you can go onto Handshake and search using the filter and the label #Virtual Connect, and that will bring up all of the virtual sessions that we're running throughout the course of spring term, regardless of the program that slots into. So there's loads going on. So Handshake is probably the best place to find all of that information. So yeah, again, I just wanted to make you aware of that. I think that's it from me. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, Louis?
No, I think that's everything. So yeah, huge thanks to yourself, Grace, for having me along, and thanks to everyone for taking part as well. I hope it's proved to be of some use. If anyone does have any questions about Teach First, about our training program, or anything else to do with graduate recruitment, please do feel free to reach out to me. But otherwise, yeah, I'll hopefully see some of you at our next masterclass next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Fab. Take care, folks.